Yeah, he totally snapped. After a meal, some people tend to head to the bathroom, while others prefer to relax for a bit. It seemed that several people had left the parlor, just like I did when I went to the kitchen to drink some water. She's still standing there with a fucking shotgun, or rifle, or whatever. In the end, Aunt Natsuhi reluctantly retracted her order that everyone remain packed into the parlor, on the condition that no one headed out on their own or strayed too far. In any case, if 11 people are shut up in the same room starting early in the morning, the air will start to stagnate. Also, quite some time had passed, so everyone was starting to recover from the shock of that morning, if that's even possible, in such a short time, and their sense of danger might have been weakening too. However, it was a certain fact that 6 people had been killed inside this mansion, so no one was completely negligent. I forgot how to pronounce that. So whenever they went out in the hallway for a breath of fresh air, trying to act tough, they would quickly get scared of standing there isolated and would eventually return to the parlor. I can totally see that. I guess it's like the north wind and the sun. That again. If you force someone to stay shut in, they'll resist. But if you tell them to do whatever they want, they'll come back obediently. People really do like not doing what they're told. When the servants finished cleaning up from the meal, they returned obediently to the parlor just as Aunt Natsuhi had told them to, and sat on a sofa near the entrance, patiently awaiting orders. Maria, almost as though she had suddenly finished playing witches, had returned to the pure Maria I knew well, saying, "Ooh." Well, that's weird. What in the world happened back there? I hadn't felt even an atom of the presence of this person called Beatrice, who was supposedly standing behind me.
Ist nass? Was hast du gemacht?
Man hat Wasser umgekippt.
Du hast Wasser umgekippt? Ja. Bald. Mikrofon.
So, sorry. But I guess the timing was pretty well. I feel like I kind of messed up my headphones. I hope I didn't. Okay. Yeah, he always stays up very late. I guess he comes after me. Okay. Alright. Gonna continue until around 10, I think. Because I mean, I mentioned before that I usually want to try and do it until 11 for Umineko, but I am very tired today, and I also have to get up very early tomorrow to have the car checked. So let's see if there's a good spot somewhere after 10 o'clock to take a break. I hadn't felt even an atom of the presence of this person called Beatrice, who was supposedly standing behind me invisible. And then the camera falls down. That probably was great timing indeed. However, it felt like I'd glimpsed a little of that presence inside Maria. You're right. When Maria starts talking about witches, her personality changes. Batlakun, you also saw it down by the beach yesterday, right? Did I? You mean that scorpion keychain? No, I don't mean like when her feelings were hurt. I'm talking about her having a dual personality or something. Yeah, that happens sometimes too. That thing Maria did when she was talking about the magic circle does happen every now and then. Oh, so it's not like she's just possessed by Beatrice now? It's freaky though. Apparently Jessica had spotted that Kikihi Maria a few times. I just happened to catch it at a bad moment and was pretty freaked out seeing it for the first time. So what is that? Does Maria have a dual personality or something? Or are you saying that her spiritual sense really is that strong and she's being possessed by a spirit or whatever? No, I don't think it's that. Haven't you ever experienced it? When you were small, didn't you ever want to be someone other than yourself? When humans are born, no one has an individuality. However, when they reach their growth period, the sense of self starts to be born. They want to be different from other people. but since everyone else in their class is learning the same things at the same rate and being forced into the same lifestyle, of course they aren't going to find anything that makes them different from everyone else around them. Once they realize that, the first thing they do is to start breaking the rules in what's called their rebellious stage. Since everyone else follows the rules, they want to show off their individuality by breaking them. So even those who try to act tough, mocking everyone around them and calling them childish, can actually be viewed as cute kids searching for themselves if you look at it this way. Well, I'm lecturing about all this like I'm so smart, but I actually got it secondhand from George Aniki. I myself was one of those embarrassing guys who thought it was cool to act like a little bastard. Well, that was when I was at the age where you try to show off for the opposite sex. The main feature of the growing period lies in an impulse to break away from your life as a kid, like a chick trying to crack open the shell of their egg. Do you know what makes children and adults different? Age? Or do you mean size? No, it's experience. Adults can look down on children because children have very little life experience. The reason they snort at everything children say is because they think kids know nothing about the real world. Yeah, real clever answer, Battler. Yeah, I understand that. When you're a kid, you talk like you've got life all figured out somehow, trying to act like an adult. No matter what kids say, adults just snort at them and say they're too naive, or that they'll understand when they get older or something. I should call this episode 8, ? Well, it's probably true, but to a kid it's just annoying, like they're being looked down upon. I get it, it's a question of knowledge and experience. Well, I guess you're right that there's no reason to respect a person for their age if they've just wasted their lives. Therefore, during the period when they try to separate themselves from other children, they also try to take on personality traits different from those around them. And if knowledge and experience is what separates kids and adults, I get it, if they know something no one else knows, it becomes part of their identity. You know, when I was in elementary school, I learned things no one else knew, get things no one else had, wear things no one else wore, and became a bit of a hero for it. I'll bet you've done the same thing, Battler. I think it was different enough for having a stupid-ass name, but what do I know? Yeah, that was definitely an age when I wanted to excel in some skill or other. I see, so that's because I was trying to separate myself from being a child, or going through my growing period, in other words. If you put a positive spin on it, the growing period forces you to separate yourself from others, thereby pushing you to gain skills and knowledge no one else has. This is also interesting from a sociological standpoint, because people hate being like everyone else. They try to learn skills other people don't know. In this way, society can acquire the broad range of skills it needs to survive. The quality of the God's programming is truly surprising. Die Main-Character-Frisur ist wirklich wie so ein bisschen wie das Standardset aus dem RPG-Maker. Well, unique personality traits can also be negative, right? Like if, say, everyone in the class was studying hard, but I was the only one slacking off, trying to stand out. Okay, that last bit really was true. I was about to ask if that was like from your biography. It's only recently that I've been able to thank the middle school teacher who slapped me after school. But while I tried to jump over things no one else could, sprint as fast as I could, trying to lap those guys with good grades when we did a marathon, I just felt like doing it. It was in my nature that if I couldn't study well, then at least I could get back at them by exercising. I see, so I really did go through a proper growing period. I guess boys really do tend to focus more on physical stuff. But you know, girls of the same age tend to focus more on mental, spiritual things. I'll bet there were groups of girls in your classes that got really interested in fortune-telling and their spiritual senses. Yeah, there were. They'd come over asking me for my sign and my blood type, and then they'd laugh. I thought so. It really got on my nerves, you know. No matter which class you go to, girls like fortune-telling. Deciding whether your spirit sense is strong or weak, what your sensitivity is, whether you can see the unseeable, that kind of thing definitely happened to me. That's because fortune-telling and spiritual senses are things that aren't taught in school. To girls who tend to be more introverted, it's a genre that's easy to build an identity upon and one that holds a lot of interest to them. Just like how when boys enter their growing period, they start acting tough and rebel against adults, when girls enter their growing period, they start getting interested in that kind of thing. Well, I didn't though. So, Maria having so much interest in the occult, isn't that rare among girls her age? Even if we accept that, I wonder if it explains that creepy dual personality thing. No, I don't think it is. Actually, I think I probably could accept that explanation more or less. As you just said, becoming an adult means gaining knowledge and experience. So to gain that, it's necessary for children to learn all sorts of things and break free from childhood. However, there are certain convenient delusions that you see often in the world of children, both now and in the past. Do you know what I mean? You see it all the time in manga and anime, right? It's kind of like that. Like you've got memories from a previous life that start to resurface. Like you're being possessed by the soul of the great something or whatever. Or it could be that a sleeping gene gets awakened, or maybe a sealed power or memory returns. There's all kinds. For some reason, stuff like that's really popular at that age. Why is that? All of those examples you've just mentioned are illusions that let children immediately add to the sum of knowledge and experience. If a 9-year-old girl says she has a 1,000-year-old witch possessing her, then she gains a 1,009-year-old identity. So basically, studying is annoying, but these delusions are convenient for people who want to brag about having a skill no one else has, amazing the people around them. So you could brag about something without having to work hard or study. I see, isn't that a kid's greatest dream? Furthermore, in their desire to separate themselves from being kids, they always project an image of their ideal self, and it's not rare for that desire itself to become an alternate personality. Even you, Battlercoon, probably had a slightly different personality at home and at school, right? It'd probably be embarrassing if your friends at school saw how you were at home. Yeah, I think from a Japanese perspective, this is quite fitting. At school, you try to project yourself as you want to be, but home is where you're your true self. So, in other words, I'm changing my personality depending on the situation. Are you trying to say having multiple personalities is actually really common? A girl who's a fan of the occult might say she's being possessed or awakened. Honestly, there are some kids who change their personality so much it's creepy. And some boys do it too, right? Guys who say they've blown their top and suddenly turn into some overplayed violent character. I'll bet they think it's pretty cool, but it's painful to watch. Let's sum this all up. So you're saying that even if a girl about Maria's age shows a creepy second personality like she did a minute ago, it isn't such a rare or unusual thing? Simply put, that's right. Identity is an important factor when building up one's sense of self. If you make fun of it, it could actually cause children to go back into their shells. So it's important to go along with them to some degree, although the broad-mindedness of the parent determines whether they play along in full or not. Aniki, I can't believe you're single. You sound like you've already raised kids through middle school. Dude, the girl he proposed to just got murdered. I'm not sure if it's a great idea to say something like, I can't believe you're single. But it seems like George didn't really pick up on that. So I wonder if Aunt Rosa also knew much about Maria's dual personality. She knew about it. Just between us, Aunt Rosa really hated it. She said it was unpleasant and that Maria was becoming increasingly isolated from the rest of the class. So anytime Maria started talking about the occult or laughing like a witch, she'd slap her. Oh dear. And it looks like Maria stopped talking that way in front of her. Maybe that thing back there was just a little game from a girl facing her growing period. Just a girl trying to show that she was different and independent by holding interest in witches and the occult. And since she wanted to be different from herself, young as she was switching between her normal personality and the personality of her ideal, a witch. At first I'd found that very disturbing, but after being lectured to by George Aniki, it felt like this was a path everyone walked down at one time or another. I haven't told anyone, but when I was in kindergarten, I joined up with a little gang of kids trying to form an Earth Defense Force, saying we'd help protect peace on Earth. My face turns red when I remember how, during what we called battle practice, we would chant EDF, EDF. Just like usual, Maria was relaxing, immersed in the TV, oohing and laughing just like any girl her age, but on the inside another personality, that of the ideal witch who respected and blindly accepted, was sleeping. But that wasn't anything extraordinary, it was perfectly natural for a girl of her age. Yeah, but not really giving a fuck about her mother having been brutally murdered? That doesn't seem perfectly normal for her age, if you ask me. I've calmed down a little. The shock from my bizarre experience in the kitchen just now is fading away. If I hadn't talked to Aniki and Jessica, I might still be frightened by the idea that an invisible witch is standing right behind me. However, can I really accept that as an explanation for what happened back there? If it had just been Maria, I could have explained it as the fickle delusions of a growing girl. But Genji-san, Kanon-kun, and Kumasawa-bachan had also been there. None of them had denied what Maria said. They silently accepted that Beatrice exists. I was starting to feel a little uneasy. Aunt Eva's position was that no 19th person existed, that the crime was an inside job tied to the family quarrels. On the other hand, Aunt Natsuhi's position was that the culprit was hiding somewhere outside the mansion. So she rejected the possibility of an inside job and supported the idea that this 19th person existed. And in the kitchen, Maria and the servants had also supported the idea of a 19th person, but according to them, this 19th person isn't human. They said it was an invisible witch carrying out some mysterious plan. Is there a 19th person or not? And is the culprit human or a witch? For some reason I couldn't just laugh off any of those possibilities, not even the most ridiculous story about the witch. Jessica. All I know about the story of the witch is that the adults made it up to keep the kids too scared to enter the forest, but is the story different here in the mansion? I feel the same way you do, okay? I think it was just a stupid ghost story that parents made up so their kids would listen to them, but I can't deny that the atmosphere inside the mansion makes it a little hard to say it out loud. After all, grandfather has proclaimed that Beatrice exists, and because of their position, the servants can't doubt that. Even Uncle Klaus and old Natsui don't want to get into a fight with him, so on the surface they go along with it. So it's probably fair to say that doubting the existence of Beatrice is taboo to those who live and work in this mansion, unlike the rest of us who only come here once a year. Is that right? Jessica took a deep breath in admiration. It looked like Aniki had guessed right. Yeah, we had been talking about his name when it came up for the first time, and we decided to call him Klaus because that's probably what the Japanese was going for. It's just like you say, no one really believes it on the inside, but on the outside they accept that she exists. See, it's just like the way some people are about God. Even if they know God doesn't exist, they feel like it would be uncouth if they actually said it out loud. How do you think the servants feel about it? Are they just going along with it because grandfather, their employer, says that she exists? Well, I don't really know the details, but between the servants, the story about Beatrice has been treated like a sort of ghost story. Remember yesterday when Shannon was talking to us down by the beach? That story about how one night when she was doing the rounds in the mansion she saw something unsettling? She did say something like that, didn't she? Back then I thought she was just being really nice to help improve Maria's mood, but it felt like she was serious when she said it. That's right, she definitely said it. She definitely said the same kind of thing that Genji and the rest had all unanimously declared back in the kitchen. In addition, some servants have also seen will-o'-the-wisps and glittering butterflies dancing around. Kanon-kun also saw something like that when he went patrolling one night, and recently he often hears servants talking about strange footsteps heard inside the mansion near midnight. We've whispered together that the Beatrice-sama in the portrait sometimes makes herself invisible and walks through the mansion. It happened a while ago, but even I have heard footsteps while patrolling at night that resemble these stories. That's right, she definitely said that. Exactly the same thing that I had been told just now. But there's nothing to be afraid of. Beatrice-sama is another ruler of this mansion, separate from the master, so there's no need to be unnaturally afraid. If you respect her, I hear she won't do anything bad. Well, that's a bit too late for a battler, I guess. However, she can be quite terrifying if you don't respect her, right? Correct. I've heard that just before I began working here, someone who spoke badly about Beatrice-sama fell down the stairs and quit after receiving a large injury to their back. Because of that, there was a rumor between the servants that Beatrice-sama's anger had been brought down upon this person. If you don't respect her, you'll suffer her wrath and get hurt. So to the servants, Beatrice's existence is just as credible as the story that if you pull pranks on Inari-san, you'll receive Kitsune-sama's curse. Yeah, I'm not gonna explain any of that now. Of course, even though everyone accepts that curses and the like don't exist in the modern era, people are still afraid and still have a little respect for them. You often see it when in a residential area, someone is building a house and they call a Shinto priest for a ceremony to honor the god of that plot of land. You might think that was just a big waste of time and money, but it is said that if the workers don't do that, a big accident will occur, so they never neglect to do it. You also hear about how if an Inari shrine is carelessly removed during a town replanning, that'd be a curse by Kitsune-sama. I think I might have read somewhere that when the occupying forces were trying to expand an airport, they tried to remove an Inari-san that was in the way. Oh, I mean, Inari sushi is quite good. And the workers kept getting struck down by mysterious fevers. Even in modern cities like Tokyo, it wasn't rare to see modern buildings packed all around an old Inari shrine, leaving the shrine itself untouched. And this wasn't limited to Japan. It's probably similar to how foreigners baptize babies. If I remember right, by Christian doctrine, if unbaptized souls have even the slightest amount of sin, they will still go to hell. Putting water on a child's forehead doesn't do anything but make them cry, but if by doing just that, parents can prevent their children from going to hell, they will happily go through with that ceremony. In short, even in this modern society of reason, we were still unable to throw away every trace of belief and fear. You could even say that we accept certain sorts of supernatural things, though in a passive way. Maybe the only difference on this island is that Beatrice is the object of that worship. So in other words, if anything happens that doesn't seem explainable in human terms, it's called the work of Beatrice. I think Shannon-chan said it herself. Windows and doors and locks that were tightly shut would be open the next time you went to check them. Gotta catch 'em all. Lights that should have been on went out, and lights that should have been out were turned on. And if I remember, even Jessica was joking about it, saying it was also the work of Beatrice when she couldn't find her bag in the morning. Your memory's pretty good. What are you, Sigma? Normally you'd say some little imps took them, but on this island it's Beatrice. Well, it's all pretty stupid though. This mansion has been standing for about 30 years by now, hasn't it? It's natural for things to get their fair share of ghosts and occult stories. Like the 7 mysteries at a school. But that's where I'll spin the chessboard around. Huh? Simply put, on this island, there's a rule that Beatrice gets blamed for anything that couldn't have been done by humans. Things that humans can't do. How many humans are here? 18. In other words, the culprit is using the rules of this island to make it look like a witch committed this crime, which proves that they desperately want us to think a 19th person did it. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. What do you mean you don't like it? Let's assume some invisible 19th person exists and wants people to know they exist. If it were me, I'd do it with even more perfect timing. What do you mean by perfect timing? Well, the crime took place sometime between the middle of the night and dawn, right? We had some people who were talking together until the middle of the night, some people on night shifts, and some people who'd returned to their rooms and were sleeping. Everyone's alibi is really vague, so there's plenty of room to suspect that the crime was an inside job. George, Aniki, Aunt Eva probably told you too, right? That there's a good chance this crime was an inside job? Yes, I guess. In other words, if this invisible 19th person really exists and wants to let us know it, this first crime was a complete failure. No, in the first place, they chose the wrong time of day to do it. If this invisible 19th person really wanted to show themselves, they had to make sure that the crime took place under conditions which proved that the remaining 12 people were all innocent. As long as there's a single human we can suspect, this 19th person's attempt to highlight their presence fails. That's why near midnight, when everyone's alibis are at their vaguest, the 19th person's existence is also at its vaguest. And yet, the culprit chose to commit the crime at that time. By committing the crime, then, one of the 18 would obviously be suspected, and yet someone handed Maria the letter and called themselves a witch, even though everyone denies they did it. In other words, you're trying to say that one of the 18 is trying to make it look like a 19th person called Beatrice exists? That's a pretty crazy idea. I think Mom's theory about someone hiding outside the mansion is a bit more credible. Bella, don't tell me you actually think someone in this room is the culprit. I do. Someone is trying to force us to accept that Beatrice exists. That's right, this whole thing started as far back as the letter last night. I don't have any basis of proof. But with the chessboard turned around, this is my best guess. You know what just occurred to me? So... No, wait. Okay, maybe not. I thought that somebody will get murdered again very soon. And since Kinzo is still not back, I was wondering if he's just gonna show up dead next. But this doesn't necessarily sound like somebody gets murdered, or... Those who remain shall tear apart the two who are close. It sounds like those who are still alive tear apart, like, two people. I have no idea. I don't have any basis or proof, but the chessboard turn around, this is my best guess. Seriously, that's too crazy. You sure you haven't been reading too many weird detective novels? However, it's an angle we can't ignore. Whether there's a 19th person or not, the culprit's definitely planning something involving that rule about this island. Just now, listening to Batlakun talk, I remembered something that's a little disturbing. Something disturbing? Yes. Do you remember Beatrice's letter? It said that Beatrice was going to collect interest, and by interest it mentioned everything of the Ushiromiya family. Jessica and I thought back on what Maria had read aloud the previous night. Yeah, it said that. It definitely said that. That the collection of the interest was going to take place shortly, but if the riddle of the gold could be solved, she lost that right. Grandfather received the gold and rebuilt the Ushiromiya family. In other words, according to Beatrice, everything created using the gold as capital counts as part of the interest, which means... That's pretty scary for a joke, Aniki. You don't mean everything of the Ushiromiya family? In other words, everything that grandfather gave birth to? In other words, everyone with grandfather's blood flowing through their veins? If you interpret the letter that way, these murders are just Beatrice legitimately collecting interest. Yeah, but she didn't just murder people with the blood of the grandfather. She murdered, like, at least 3 people, I think, who were not related. Like, Kyria, fucking Goda, Dickbag, and Shannon. If that's the case, the crimes will continue, because the collection of interest is still only halfway completed. George turned around, looking over the parlor. There were still many people who held the name Ushiromiya, and because Goda-san and Shannon-chan had been killed, we knew that not even the servants were safe, despite lacking the Ushiromiya name. So are they planning to kill us all? But that's weird, George Nissan. In that case, why only 6 people? They should have been able to kill a lot more. At worst, it should have been possible for them to assault everyone while they were sleeping and kill them in a single night. Why didn't they do that? The special clause. If someone manages to solve the riddle of the gold, their right to the interest will be lost. And remember how the letter ended. It challenged us all to solve the riddle of the grandfather's gold. Jesus, it looks like we're finally understanding the culprit's message. In other words, the culprit's telling us to try and solve the riddle on that epitaph grandfather had made. On top of that, they're saying that if we just sit around, they'll keep collecting the interest. I realize this is all based on several guesses that are way out there, but not everything that happens in this world fits together in a perfect line. Oh, okay, gut, danke für den Hinweis. Most of the events we don't understand are only individual points. By fitting them into a straight line, we're beginning to understand. When the points at either end of the line are really close, the line itself is more logical and easier to understand. And when those points are really far away, the opposite is true. It's the distance between these points that makes us say our guesses are way out there. However, if the distances we span are too narrow, that means our thinking will be narrow too. Is there a difference between making guesses and reasoning? Am I just using easily made guesses to try and force this crime into a pattern I can understand? No, that's not it. When you're lost in the dark and searching around with your hands, what you're doing is relying on your imagination and making guesses. Only imagination can find the points that need to be tied together. Reasoning is nothing more than the act of drawing lines between them. If you can't imagine, you can't reason. What I'm doing might be way out there. What I'm doing now might be way out there, but I'm sure it isn't a mistake either. Only the power of imagination can pull clues out from the darkness, and then I can use the power of reasoning to tie those clues together. It was a lot like the process of searching out an enemy's weak spot and striking. It's okay if I'm way out there. Find a weak point first, then we can think about how to strike. Right now is the time to find points we can tie together later. guess this is the good spot to stop for today. Because it seems like a new scene. Not sure if that's the one you meant. Yeah, okay. Good. Yeah, I'll try to make it longer again next time, but today I'm really tired and I need to get the car looked at tomorrow morning. So I'll stop the recording for today.